Hi, everyone. Welcome and Happy New Year. I'm Patsy. I'm here as your host today, and my co-host is Ta, who is operating in the background. He will come on screen to speak with Charles later in this event. So before I officially bring up Charles, who founded a new and ancient story community, I would like to give special thanks to our AMA, Theme Fielding Committee, who planned the theme for today's event. And they are Paul, Michelle, V, Connie, and Todd. And I also want to thank you, our live chat support team, for your presence here with everyone. And they are Paul, Michelle, V, Connie, Samar, Sherry, and Marshall. Please say hi, audience, to our teams. They are also currently in service to our community as our moderator and facilitators. We plan on ending our event today at 4 o'clock, and we have 4 guests live here today with you on screen presenting their questions. And then after that, Todd will ask a question on behalf of one members and present a synthesis of all pre-submitted questions for Charles to respond to. Hopefully, this part would take us about 35 to 40 minutes. And if we are on our target time, we will have our live chat support to bring up 1 or 2 guests from our live chat. That's it. Enjoy. And now let's welcome Charles. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Patsy. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yep. Hey, thanks for doing this again.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, we are very looking forward to that. So we would like to invite you to open this event today by responding to our community members' collective questions around your recent appearance in the Conspirituality podcast interview, which is called Are There Really Two Sides? And I remember in their opening interview, their host said that they were surprised by your agreeing to come on knowing that you're walking into Lion's Den, right? So the collective questions are, why do you agree to be on Conspirituality podcast, knowing that you have been, they have been very critical of your work, and they, they're likely not to agree with you, and with the goal of promoting their idea of conspirituality, and what principle from that endeavor can be extracted from your perspective for applications in other areas of activism and service in the world, and how do these principles reflect our community's vision? And is there any personal learning for you, and what are they?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. I was definitely nervous going into that interview because I was aware that these people have been very critical, but and the temptation is to paint them as the opponent or the bad guy or someone like on the other side. But fundamentally, I know that this world is not going to improve because one side finally defeats the other side in some kind of intellectual joust or even a political battle. But that our transition to a better world is going to come through rehumanizing each other and actually looking at the world from someone else's point of view. So I took the invitation to be on their podcast as a gesture in that direction. I mean, at least to engage in a conversation. Now, I had no expectation that they would be especially receptive, but at least like even to say, yes, I will talk to you, that already is a positive step. That a lot of conflicts in the world have not yet entered. There's a lot of conflicting parties politically, for example, that just won't even talk to each other. Like even to engage in a conversation with the other side is seen as a kind of a betrayal, because why would you give them a platform even? So I felt it was important to take this opportunity, even knowing like, maybe they would be fair and respectful. And I felt like the interviewer, Matthew Bremsky, was, at least, I mean, he certainly had strong opinions and maybe was a little combative, but he was also willing to at least engage and to listen and to take my points seriously and not just to try to shoot them down on trivial grounds. So there was, I thought that was good. I felt pretty good about, like, he was at least willing to step out of complete dogmatism. And then afterwards, I didn't look at what happened after, but apparently the three of them got together and, kind of tore me apart and stuff. But, and maybe a lot of the audience came away saying, yeah, we're right. That guy's an idiot, and they proved it. But that's okay, because maybe some of the audience had some new ideas, or maybe just a little more doubt about something that they had been so certain about before. And that's really all I want, is to seed a little bit of questioning. It's not necessarily for people to come away and say, oh yeah, Charles is right, because maybe Charles isn't right. I don't think that actually anybody is right about everything. In fact, I'm probably grievously wrong about some of the things that I believe, but I can trust people to discover that and to arrive at what is true in relation to their own experience of life. So, even if 10% or 20%, or even like, I feel like even the interviewer, I don't think I changed his mind about anything, but I think that maybe something changed. Like maybe he's a little less dogmatic. But anyway, those were some of the motivations that I had going in, just to enter into this conversation. And of course, this could be applied. I already said it a bit. The willingness to engage, and also the willingness not to box somebody into a category and to write them off. I don't care who it is. Bill Gates, for example. Like, there's an awful lot of reasons to criticize what he's doing in the world, and to identify him with a kind of technological utopianism, and worse. But if you hold him just in that story, that here's what he is, and that therefore he will never change, then you're not creating an opportunity for him to change, and you're not recognizing the complexity of a full human being. Because I know that I'm not any one thing that somebody could fix me into, and neither is he. So I think that this is and certainly this is a practice of our community as well. There was recently somebody very bravely posted something that went against what many of the more vocal people in the community believe, actually. And she was like, I'm not sure if I belong here, because I'm thinking differently than most people. And it was on a very triggering issue. It was on COVID and stuff. But the kind of welcome and the kind of belonging that I would like to host here in this community doesn't depend on agreeing with people about any issue, really. The kind of belonging, like I belong here because I feel free to speak, and I respect the words of others as coming from a genuine human being, which is a holy being. So that when we are able to hold somebody in their complexity and in their divinity, then that story of here is who you are becomes an invitation for them to play into that story. If you engage somebody with, I know that you actually on some level want the truth too. I know that on some level you want peace also. Or even to be curious, well, what do you really need? What are you seeking? That is an invitation for them to occupy that role. So yeah, I hope that answers some of the questions. I really appreciated the support that I got, because after that interview, I felt really like a lot of despair, like all of the criticisms kind of opened a door for the criticisms to come inside and to like attack me from within. And I mean, I felt like I was almost losing my sanity for a while. And it was really helpful to read the supportive messages, not only supporting, oh, Charles, you're great, or something like that, but also like saying, yeah, I feel like it was kind of a snow job, or yeah, to affirm, like to kind of stand up for me when, like, yeah, like there's a time to stand up for myself, and I need community to do that, which is healthy. It's not actually healthy for a human being to disregard what everyone around them is saying about them and the world. And in a healthy culture, we would be able to trust the institutions of that culture to align us and to define what's sane and what's crazy, what's true and what's false. Today, we do not have a healthy culture, but we can create subcultures that can hold an alternative truth. Well, let's say an alternative reality or an alternative story, even when the dominant culture is has gone crazy. So thank you to everybody who was supportive in that way. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it right now.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much. In fact, I feel like I have more follow-up question to ask you. And it happens so that our first guest, Toby Harper, his question is in relation to, a continuation to this topic. So, Todd, maybe we can pull up. Todd, hi, Toby.
Hi everyone.
We'll let Toby and
Hi, Charles.
take over to ask you this question.
Yeah, you've kind of alluded to it already. It comes from, I guess I have this, how do I say? Like I want to believe that there's this inner capacity.
Oh, and can somebody spotlight Toby so I can see him better? There we are. Yeah. Hi, Toby. Hi.
Hi, Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to believe that in everyone there's this like innate capacity to like reach beyond like science and what's measurable, and like just innately curious. And I don't know if I'm maybe overstepping, like actually it's more helpful to just be accepting of who someone is in their entirety, like kind of what you just said. But a part of me is like unsatisfied to leave it there. Like I like to believe that underneath it all there's this little, I don't know, like this little gem of like curiosity. And if it is there, how do we like cultivate and encourage ourselves and other people to talk in that way? I don't know. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answer to that as well as everybody, that there is that seed of curiosity in every human being, and the desire to transcend the boundaries of our world, because really that's what we're talking about. However, not everybody is always at that point in their soul's journey to transcend the boundaries of the world. Like, we create the cocoon of our world for a reason. The reason is that there's growth that's possible within that. You can explore within a set of beliefs. You can explore a reality, and you can explore who you are in that reality. And if somebody's in that phase of their existence, then they're not going to be very receptive to any message pointing to something beyond that. But when they're growing against the limits of that cocoon, then they're going to crave data points from outside that world. So for me, it's about tuning into the receptivity or lack thereof, and restraining myself sometimes. I'm like, but don't you see? Don't you get it? You know, I have so much knowledge to offer you, but if it's not invited on some level, then, you know, it's kind of like a form of domination again, or manipulation. So my practice is to tune into the invitation, which may not be explicit, but there's, I mean, I don't want to make it seem so esoteric, you know, it's like, it can be very mundane. It can be like a probe, a question. And then, oh yeah, the response is welcoming. So maybe I say a little bit more. I don't know, is that helpful, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, that is helpful. Because I have in mind one of my oldest friends who I've had this relationship where it's always conversations have always stayed in a kind of formulaic way, and I've never known what to really do to kind of to probe, or to whether it was even my place to probe, you know, and whether it's just safer, and well, not safer, but like more accepting and more loving to just stay in that space.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is to notice maybe where your comfort is in staying in that space. Yeah. Like, you know, like for me, like I might express my impatience with small talk or with superficial conversations, but to really get into a truly intimate conversation, you know, I have some resistance to that. So maybe I'm playing along with, out of my own comfort, with them staying in their comfort zone, and bringing awareness to that. It kind of takes the pressure off for me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Toby. Toby, I meant to ask you, where are you calling from? Are you from the United States? Or?
No, I'm from the UK, from Worcestershire.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for the voice from UK. Thank you, Toby.
Thank you.
We'll see you
thank you for coming on. Nice. Yeah, I appreciate the question very much. This is one that comes up a lot. Yeah, because it seems so frustrating, you know? Like, when are people going to wake up? When are they going to get it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Goodbye, Toby.
Bye.
So, Charles, are you ready for our next guest?
Yeah.
So she's Penelope. And Penelope, could you tell us where you're from?
Hi, Charles. I'm from Mexico. I'm living in Montreal, in Canada right now. But yeah, I'm from Mexico.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks.
So, well, I think I'd like to invite you to ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much. I think I want to read it because I'm very nervous. So, well, what I wrote was, hello, Charles. What happened to you regarding Conspirituality podcast really left me thinking a lot about a very personal issue I deal with constantly in my life. My fear of rejection in its many forms, not being liked, accepted, loved, validated, or even being criticized, especially when we're trying to do something honest, good, authentic in the world. So I guess my question is, how can we learn to deal with such situations when, despite all our good intentions and best efforts, we receive criticism and rejection? And also, what can we do to keep ourselves honest when it comes to our intentions? How do we know that what we do is based on love and not on our need to be loved, accepted, and validated. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Wow, that's yeah, those are some pretty deep questions, actually. I don't know. I like to sometimes first go to kind of an intellectual level. It's, you know, and if you're creating something, even if it's just out of materials, for me, like I sometimes go through this frustration where the materials don't do what I want them to. Like the, you know, the boards don't stick together, or I glued it in backwards or something like that. And there's part of me that sometimes takes that as a rejection. It's not fair. Why is the world doing that to me, and so forth. And when we create in the social realm, if we're trying to change something, there's going to be resistance, which is not a bad thing. It's just something that we should expect if we're trying to you know, if you're trying to change some boards into a chicken coop, like you're putting something new into the world, and you're changing the world. So there's some kind of resistance that happens, even if you're really in the flow and you know exactly what to do. Still, we have a body, you know, we have hands, and the world is material. And so I guess what I'm saying is that another way to put it is that the canvas that we are given as artists, as social, cultural, spiritual artists, is not a perfectly white canvas. It's got all kinds of creases and spots, and then our set of paints doesn't have all the colors we want, you know, and some of the paints are dirty, and some of them, and so we have to use what's available as best we can. And so these imperfect circumstances include the social environment that then people will criticize, they'll resist, and reject. And if we understand that that's just the nature of the world, and it's not because there's something wrong with me, that's helpful. But really, like, you know, I really get taken for a loop sometimes when I'm, you know, when I encounter criticism and rejection. And it's probably because of growing up in modern society, where we are trained to reject ourselves, to withhold love unless we're good.
Yeah.
This is a lot of what parenting is about. You know, the parent will give approval if you obey, and if you meet their expectations and standards, and disapprove. And it's not that they don't love you anymore, but they withhold the expression of love, and then you feel bad about yourself and you feel unsafe. So this is internalized as self-rejection, and it's painful. And to like practically, besides healing that wound of self-rejection and allowing love from myself and from others. Well, those are the two things: healing the wound and then letting in the love. And I guess also part of it is also a feeling of belonging that is relatively absent in modern societies. Because if you have that feeling of belonging, acceptance, membership in a real community, then the threat of rejection isn't so strong. It's when we don't have community, and or maybe our connections are quite indirect and tenuous, like in an online community or a political community where you can be rejected just because you say the wrong thing or have the wrong opinion. Then we're very insecure. So I think a lot of what you're talking about is like you might think, why am I so sensitive to this criticism and rejection?
Yeah.
You know, that's because you're not held enough in love. And either because maybe it's not that available, you know, because maybe you've moved from Mexico to Canada.
Everywhere.
Yeah, but
Everywhere.
maybe if you lived in a small village in rural Mexico, maybe you would have really strong community there.
Yeah.
If you weren't somewhere, you know, that was modern. But most of us don't have that now. And then there's the cooperation. So like, even if it is available, it takes a little while to really accept it and to love ourselves the way that others love us. And so I think what you're talking about, this is not something that you need to work on. This is something to hold very gently and lovingly, and to see it as a symptom and say, oh yeah, you know, all of my needs are not being met. Some of my needs are not being met. And maybe I do feel a little lonely, a little alienated. Maybe I don't, I'm not sure if this is true of you or not, but I'm just maybe speaking to the many, many people who are in a similar situation. Yeah, maybe something that is fundamental to human well-being is missing in my life. And it doesn't mean that it's a permanent sentence and that you'll never have community, connection, and belonging, but it's an authentic recognition of a need. And when we can recognize the need, it sets a process in motion to meet that need. You become more available to it. And yeah, I think it's just important to understand that it's not that you're doing something wrong, but from the understanding of the need, you become attuned to meet that need and aware of a possibility, the possibility of love, the possibility of acceptance, the possibility of belonging, and the possibility of self-love. And you feel the truth of that. And then you know it exists, and things start to happen, and you become able to say yes to it. And then in the end, you become less afraid of rejection and criticism. So is that helpful, or is there anything that you'd like to add? Or?
No, super thankful. No, yeah, I think it's exactly what I resonate a lot with what you're saying, because I've been for 20 years out of Mexico, and I like traveling. I love moving around. Like, it's something that I love, but I also identify my need to, or like, not be attached to anything and not belonging. And what in the beginning was exciting and different, and it became kind of even a pattern, even something that this need to don't be attached to anything and don't belong to anywhere became probably against me in that sense. Like, I don't feel I belong. I don't have a strong sense of belonging. Like, I've been for so long everywhere that I think it's I don't have this sense. And when you say that my fear of being criticized, my fear of being rejected, it's a lot about that. Like, I don't have a strong community that tells me, Penelope, it's fine, don't worry, you're fine. It's a reminder, no, it's okay. You don't need to be liked. You don't need everyone to accept you. You know, it's okay.
Yeah, and the journey you're talking about is actually a healthy, normal journey. Like you grow up in a certain setting, and at some point you're like, well, who am I outside of this setting? You want to learn more about yourself, and that's why so many young people want to go on a journey. I mean, it's even in fairy tales. I did this when I was 19. I went to Taiwan. And felt an incredible freedom. I know what you're talking about. Like this is what love to travel in part is. I felt such a freedom. I'm like, I can be whoever I want right here. Nobody knows me. And my circumstances are all new. And so I can be new. and this is a beautiful thing, but that doesn't mean that we're supposed to do that our entire lives.
Yes, exactly.
At some point, we want to take the new discoveries back and create a life out of them. And this desire to leave the old identity behind is even more powerful today when society is itself so alienating, and its prescription for how to be human and who you should be is so shallow and idiotic. You know, of course I don't want that. Of course I want to get away from that. Of course I don't want to be attached to that. But ultimately, that journey is supposed to come back to the village, where you are no longer just what you had been. You've brought something from the world back to the tribe, back to the people. From some kind of journey, and it doesn't even have to be a physical journey, but some separation from your conditioning circumstances. So yeah, maybe, you know, simply you're ready for something else now, and maybe that'll start happening.
Thank you, Charles. And I think NAS came just at the right time in that sense. Like I really love the community, and I love being part of that. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Patty Lope, for coming up.
Thanks, Patsy.
Yes. So see you back at our community. Yes.
Thank you, Patsy.
Bye. So thank you, Charles. Do you need to take a sip of water?
No, I'm all right. Sips of water don't help. I have to clear my throat a lot.
Great. So we're gonna welcome our third guest, Liz. Hi, Liz. Yeah, she's one of our active contributors. And welcome and thank you.
Thank you. And it's so good to be here. And thank you, Charles. I kind of have got the answer before I've asked the question, which often happens, but now I'm asking on behalf of my mum, who I had to ask not to phone right now. So of course she said, what are you going to ask? And now she really wants to know. So the word is spreading. So the question really is, wherever I go, online, offline, and I'm sure I speak for everyone, COVID-related commentary, speculation, information is the conversation, kind of exclusively. And I just wonder, is it becoming some kind of mass addiction or distraction? Because it seems like that. And I caught myself out on a NAS post, reimagining that the World Health Organization might change their definition of herd immunity. I won't go into the details, it's not relevant. But I got really absorbed in it, and I put out an idea of a meditation to get them to change their definition. And, you know, I came to my senses because I heard my father calling up from downstairs saying, Liz, your mum, she needs some practical help now. And I realized I'd been really consumed by something that maybe wasn't my business. And then I had this little doubt, or was it my business? To know that, to be aware. So I just wondered what the case is for holding and requesting those powers that Orland Bishop spoke about, of a kind of intent and attention to creating and honoring what we love of life, which just might be something very ordinary, quietly getting on with projects in hand and sort of directing our passion there. And that might be more valuable, maybe invisible, perhaps extraordinary, but I'm not sure. Is it my business to be up to speed with all this and how to deal with it?
Yeah, thank you. That's certainly it's a beautiful question and a really honest question. There's no formula to answer that question. You know, someone could make a very persuasive case that this is a time for political engagement and to operate in that realm, and otherwise nothing else is going to matter. If a technological corporate totalitarian state takes over and, you know, keeps us locked down forever, or whatever your viewpoint is on that. Or you could make the case that this collective process is underway, and wherever it's going to take us is going to happen. And the most important thing is to attend to the details of life and the people who are actually in front of you for your care. And by caring for them, you generate a morphic field that influences the world in subtle ways and even has a political effect. I mean, I believe this as well, that actions that seem to be only operative in the personal realm actually ripple out in mysterious ways. But how do you know? Like, because that teaching does not, it's not meant to imply that you should abstain from collective action, from work on that level. The answer to untie that knot is just the body. It's that you have within you a guidance system that through your feeling of, I mean, it's hard to name the feeling. It's a feeling of, but when you have the feeling that I'm doing the right thing in this moment, it's indisputable. This feeling of care and of absorption and of intimacy that you know, and maybe kind of a passion that you know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And that message from the body, I mean, it's just really simple. It starts with, what do I care about? What calls to my care? What opens my heart? That body message may conform to your intellectual understanding of what is most effective to help the world, and it may not conform to that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. You said before you asked the question, you already had the answer. I'm curious if that resonates at all with the answer that you had.
Yes, it does resonate strongly with it. And actually, it was a phrase you're fairly familiar with that came as a kind of answer, a little acronym, which I will share on the NAS community. But that question, what's it like to be you? I've been asking and thinking about that a lot. And I think sometimes when you get consumed, which means to destroy and waste your substance on something to become a consumer, is that sometimes when I've got consumed by, in fact, asking what it's like to be you, the WHO and all these people, you also have to ask what's it like to be me, and kind of hold that present, and that thing of what makes you passionate. And when you say the bodily presence, that really, if you can hold both, then it feels right. I don't know if that makes a kind of sense, but I had absented myself from both conversations, really, in the example I gave. So, yeah. So when you say what you care about, that's really what it's like to be me, and holding that as well as what it's like to be you. So thank you. That's, yeah, absolutely resonates.
Great.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz, for coming on with us today. So look forward in talking with you at the community. Bye.
Bye.
So do you feel complete, Charles? Do you want to make some final comment before we bring on the next guest?
No, I'm happy to move on to the next.
So let's welcome Ion Soul. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I first just want to say like how deeply touched I am by your modeling, Charles, of going into a space that had to be so deeply uncomfortable, and even talking about the aftermath of that. And to me, that's real leadership. So I just want to say thank you for modeling that hard thing.
Thank you.
And my question, it feels like a very selfish question, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that has it. 2020 has been a year where my understanding of what I thought was truth and how to come to some idea of truth has completely dismantled itself. You know, I've abandoned the kind of lifelong label that I held as a liberal. And I've got myself off of social media. I stopped looking at any news because I just realized for every opinion, there's a counter opinion. For every fact, there's a counter fact, so it seems. And it all gets so confusing and overwhelming. And so I'm kind of personally curious how you come to truth, or to like, yeah, what is truth to you at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boy, it's a wilderness out there, isn't it?
Mm.
You know, and for me, it's even it's a huge issue for me, because not only am I trying to understand all of this contradictory information to make choices about my life, but I'm also, you know, saying things publicly. And so before I mean, I've gone through this quite a lot in the last year. I'm like, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? You know, what if I'm wrong about vaccines? What if I'm wrong about COVID? What if I'm wrong about Russia? What if I'm wrong about whatever thing I mention in my essays or podcasts? I could be killing people. You know, what if I'm wrong about American imperialism and we actually are the paragon of freedom and democracy, bringing it to the world? And what if development is good and not like, what if I'm, you know, I go into these because those who have authority and status in our culture, they all believe it. And as human beings, we're kind of programmed to conform to what everybody thinks, and especially what the powerful think. I mean, and at least, you know, in the course of civilization, that's been an essential survival strategy. So like, there's all kinds of reasons to doubt not only what I might know, which is healthy, but to actually doubt what I know from direct experience, which is not healthy. And that's eventually what I always come back to. And I try to be careful, you know, to be like, okay, I'm not sure about this, but this and this leads me to believe that and that, right? So I'm trying not to just pronounce truths and trust me on these, but to be transparent to others about what I am doubtful about, so that when I'm not doubtful, that becomes more powerful too. And I try to do the same for myself as well. But ultimately, like, sometimes I just get my head all spun around, and I have to come back to direct. And again, it comes back to the body, to the senses. Because, so for example, there are certain things that I've experienced directly that blatantly contradict what Wikipedia says is real and possible, for example, or that blatantly contradict what the health authorities say is the correct response to COVID-19. You know, I've had years of experience with energy medicine and herbal medicine and modalities that don't get 1% or 1/10 of the research money that pharmaceuticals get. And like, when I start to doubt those experiences, I'm like, okay, hold on here. I'm being gaslit. You know, I'm betraying the experiences that have been given to me as a gift. And then when I recognize that's happening, I come back to myself. And I say, okay, there's a lot I don't know, but here's something I do know. So it's from the senses. And that includes secondhand information. Like, why do you believe somebody and not somebody else? on some level, maybe we tend to believe people who validate what we already believe and who give us a feeling of belonging, like a lot of social media is about that. And a lot of the internet, you go onto a site that assures you that you're right. But then there's also the kind of trust that comes on a body level just because like sometimes someone is just obviously sincere. They may not have all the correct opinions, but when they are relating their direct experience, you have to be crazy not to believe them. Some people are just trustworthy or have moments where, and there are like salesmen, there are people who pretend to sincerity, but we can only be fooled by them if there's some kind of hook, some kind of ego-driven willingness to believe. If we can really trust the body, then we can always detect bullshit. So this is again another example of the body, the senses, that is really the only reliable source of truth. Other things that you hear, things that you read, you can try it out. You can use all of your tools of critical thinking and intellect, but you just have to understand that you don't actually know it until it is somehow connected to lived, sensed experience. So yeah, that's how when I feel like I'm losing my sanity, that's how I stay sane. And it is through the sharing of lived, sensed experience that we're able to create a reliable collective reality, which is why our collective reality can only be as solid as the level of honesty and transparency that we hold with each other. Otherwise, we are susceptible to collective delusions, where people do not speak what they actually know, what they've actually experienced, because they're afraid to. And you have the emperor's new clothes, where everybody pretends to believe something they don't actually believe. That can't happen when we are honest. And honesty can't happen when we're unsafe. Safety, acceptance, this is something we just mentioned earlier today. Belonging, that unconditional love of a community, where that is a kind of safety that makes truth telling a lot easier. I mean, if you look at children, when do they lie? Usually it's when they want to get out of trouble. It's when they are either not safe or they are not free. So yeah. Anyway, that's the answer for me, at least. I can't know anything outside of my senses, really. Yeah. Is that useful at all?
Yeah, it pretty much confirms what I've come to. And I guess where I get tripped up is that how do I know, or how do I know or not know when my confirmation bias is coming into, like, a friend of mine who's a neuroscientist. I gave her some anti-vax information, and she said, oh, I know that this is wrong because of all the things that I know from being behind a paywall or whatever. And and I want to hear what she has to say. And then on another level, I'm like, well, nothing that she says is going to ever convince me to get a vaccine. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is happening on both sides of the vaccine issue. It's very rare that people will actually fully visit the other side and take their information in at face value. I personally am highly skeptical of vaccines. I don't think that they're safe. I don't think that they're effective in general. But I also have come to really appreciate the just enormity and depth of virology and immunology. Like, that can't just be discarded either. And it's made me as I've appreciated a little bit of that science, at least, I do feel more open-minded about it. And, then there's the whistleblowers and the apostates, the highly credentialed research scientists who change their mind and say, oh, actually, I don't trust vaccines anymore. Oh, this has been covered up, that's been covered up, this study wasn't published, et cetera, et cetera. And it is frustrating, I guess, that these two sides very rarely actually engage. It's scary to actually engage, because to actually engage means that you're putting something more important than being right. It's kind of an offering. It's to say, okay, I have a higher priority than defending what I think I know already. The higher priority is to learn how it is for you, how you are seeing, experiencing, and thinking about the world. That's actual engagement. If you're coming into it with the primary agenda being to convince, I mean, it's okay to have an agenda to convince, but if that is your God, if that is higher than any other motive, then yeah, like, how are you going to recognize your confirmation bias? Recognizing your own confirmation bias is a vulnerability. It makes you less able to win this battle. So, thank you for bringing this up, and also for your work of looking at your own confirmation bias and to recognize it. I would really, and maybe, and that's not to say that one side isn't right or wrong. I'm not saying that truth is all relative, and that neither side has more to offer than the other side. But let's have more engagement here. That's really all I would ask, is to instead of dehumanizing the other side, say that you believe in what you are told is science, and you're like, dismiss your opponents as just ignorant, unscientific, and so forth. Like, that's dehumanizing. They have a lived experience that brought them to their beliefs. What is it? Now, it may be that their lived experience has disposed them to opinions that may not actually be coming from their lived experience. It might only be associated with the lived experience. But it's an inquiry that, if we're ever going to expand beyond what we think we know, we have to enter into. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the question and the answer. And thank you, Ansel, for your presence and your deep inquiry together with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. So it looks like it's a few minutes to our proposed end time. So I think we all have time for Todd to complete the final questions that was on behalf for one of our members. So that's Todd, let's invite you on screen.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Patsy.
Hi, Todd.
Let's see, can we see you? Hi, Todd. So please.
Okay, so this is from Matt Lacey. Dear Charles, I struggle to hear and understand the difference between my egoic, false monologue and a real inner self. I feel there is a difference between the surface-ready, socially entrenched me, quote me, and the inner me, the latter knowing who I am and what I am meant for, and where my most resonant work lies. I have spent the last decade trying to give attention to the latter, which has resulted in significant changes in my life. I am, however, still struggling to tell when either is speaking to me. I find myself heavily doubting notions, whether relating to the safer path or a complete unknown news story? This doubt is heightened often as my thinking mind is dependably quick, showing me all the ways that either path will not work. I don't have strong feelings associated with most of what comes through my mind, but some ideas do return again and again. How might I tell the difference between these two voices when they sound so similar, when they both make sense, and especially as is the case now for me, when they are pulling in opposite directions on hard, life-changing decisions? Thank you, Charles. Your work continues to be an inspiration.
Wow, well, that's a very subtle question. Yeah, I just have to appreciate Matt, the questioner's name was, right? Yeah, I have to appreciate just like his delicacy of self-perception and just this earnestness, you know, to get it right. What struck me was, well, one thing that struck me about it is this, like, his statement that he doesn't necessarily have really strong feelings with about one or the other of these conflicting notions that come. Yeah, you know, actually, maybe I should think out loud rather than just to myself. This distinction between what is the ego voice and what is the true self speaking to you. I don't know, like you could torture yourself with that distinction and always trying to get the right answer and do the right thing. And maybe there's a level of self-acceptance that can simplify the whole thing. There's a feeling, and I don't know if this is where Matt's coming from or not, but I'm familiar with it, that I'm gonna do it wrong. That if I listen to the wrong internal voice, there's the good ones, there's the bad ones, there's the true ones, there's the false ones, and that I'm gonna do it wrong. Maybe his lack of intense feelings about some of these things are a sign that it's not as important as he thinks it is. Not that the issues aren't important, but that his choices have already been made. And it only seems that he's making a choice about something, but the choices have already been made. And what has made the choices has happened years ago, and has been happening for years. Whatever trauma or healing that has happened in his life, or both, all the hard work and fervent desire to heal and to learn and to know that has been going on for years, that seemed maybe not even to have succeeded, actually has changed him into somebody who will choose from that place, who will make the right choice a lot more than he thinks. It just sounds like my gut feeling is that he's making it a little harder than it has to be, and that's coming from a really good place, but it's not actually necessary. That he could, at this point, having done so much invisible work that maybe no one even knows about except himself, And maybe even he doesn't dare accept how much work he's done. But that after having done so much invisible work, he's way more trustworthy than he thinks. And to know that he is trustworthy will accelerate his trustworthiness. And then I would just say to him, feel into the truth of that. This, underneath all of those debates and these questions, the truth of I am trustworthy. And I think everybody actually could do this. Yes, all of us have probably done things that betrayed the trust of somebody else. And at the same time, you can feel the truth of I am trustworthy. That doesn't deny the betrayals or the mistakes, the slip-ups, but it is true in spite of them. And as I often say, just simply to feel the truth of that starts a process in motion or accelerates a process. It is one of those things that changes the internal conditions from which choice arises. So, yeah, I think that's. I hope that response is helpful to this person. If it wasn't, it's helpful to me.
It was helpful to me. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
So Todd, are you ready to ask the final question, the synthesis that synthesis voice of our collective pre-submitted questions as our ending question?
Okay. Well, I also really did ask kind of a synthesis of what was out there with a lot of people's questions. So, but there's another thing sort of floating around, and I feel just sort of winging it here. But Charles, I want to know, in as short as time as possible, I ask this because we don't have much time. What's it like to be you? You have a lot of followers. You have a voice in this world. You make an impact, and you have a life. You cook, I'm sure. You eat food. You go places. I'm just curious what it's like to be you.
I mean, I'm not sure how to answer that. I cook, I play with children, I have phases of energy and joy. I have phases of illness and despair. I have, I'm just as human as everybody else. I have been put in a certain place that, in life that from a certain perspective looks more important than the place that other people have been put. But I recognize that that is not a true perspective, actually. So, I mean, it's like everybody else. My life is completely normal and also completely unique. And it's not, I mean, I could tell you about my life and it would not be that much different than anybody telling you about their life. Like there might be some things that are really interesting, some things that are really boring. I have 4 amazing sons. I have, moments where I'm just like so proud of them. And I have moments where I see all the mistakes I made. I'm still proud of them even then, but, I could tell you all kinds of I mean, it would be, like somebody talking about themselves. Yeah, I'm just, I'm a human, just like all of us. So I guess I would need a more specific question, and then I guess maybe I would also be like, why do you want to know? Like, why do you want to know what it's like to be me any more than you would want to know what it's like to be Patsy? If there's anybody who's like genuinely interesting, more interesting than other people, it's Patsy, actually. I've always wanted to get her in front of a camera and tell some of her stories. Most of my stories are pretty boring compared to some of the ones she has. I mean, there are people out there who have amazing stories, of heroic escapes from prisons, and I mean, there's amazing stories out there. I don't have a lot of amazing stories. So anyway, thank you for asking.
Okay, I'm sorry about putting you on the spot a little bit, but I just really love you. I love your writings, and I just wanted to have a connection there. So I appreciate this time you've given us today. It's very, very beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you didn't feel brushed off by that. I just
not at all.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, Todd already put me on the spot. He asked me this question before, so I gave him a piece of a shocking story, which I'm going to reserve for another time. So, thank you, Todd. Thank you. And
yeah, thanks everybody for setting this all up and stuff. I appreciate the opportunity and the welcome and the invitation. So.
Yeah, so we don't have time for the questions that we collect from our live chat. So we will do the same thing. We'll repost those live chat questions back to our community and get the conversation continues. So for now, we would like to officially end our AMA Ask Me Anything session. So Charles, do you feel complete for us to end this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love to you all.